And good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Coffee with the Captain. In front of the captain, we have, or in front of the camera, we have Captain Jan Miles. Behind the camera, we have myself, Chief Mate Jeff Crosby. And Captain Miles, what have we been up to this last week?
Well, lots. We've been uprigging. The reason why we're down here is we've been seeing the approaches to the completion of a major radio and satellite emergency safety communications system, Global Marine Distress and Safety System, GMDSS for short. And we thought we'd show that to some of the folks.
Yeah, so you can see there's quite a bit of equipment that is back over here in the nav station. So what's new here versus what's been replaced here?
This is called Navtex, N-A-V-T-E-X. I don't actually know what it means, but what it does is it prints out it's a short-range local area bulletin system. Mm-hmm. So it'll provide weather, it'll provide updates to the status of satellite communications, it'll provide navigation notifications. For local areas, we're talking, say, the vicinity of southern Chesapeake Bay and northern Virginia on the ocean side. We're talking about the upper Chesapeake Bay. It's very 100 to 300 mile kind of local area stuff.
Sure.
Notifications, bulletins to ships. And it's capable of printing out. We can read it and keep it on it's not on because we're not finished installing it, but it has a memory and a screen, and it goes to memory, or it can be printed out for reasons of a permanent record. Looking at the overall view, the biggest new thing is here. This is a similar thing to Navtex, but it's ocean-wide. So we divide the globe up into ocean areas. Western North Atlantic is Ocean Area 4, Roman numeral 4. So as an SOP, that's told where the position of the ship is by GPS networking of sentencing and data. And because it knows where we are, then it only tells us what's going on in the whole of the Western North Atlantic. So when they're doing seismic work and they have long 2, 3, 4 mile trails, they'll tell us what vessel's doing that and where that is. If it's a variety of other things, including weather, including navigational information, that gets printed out in a printer that's here. And that's also part of the permanent record for certain special record keeping to show that we're maintaining our watch, our emergency watch. We're part of a network of communication. By being part of the GMDSS system, we are a listening post to what's going on out there. And if for some reason an emergency goes out, it could come in two ways to us. We might hear about it, and we might, in fact, we will hear about it, and we'll be able to determine if we're proximate to it.
Sure.
But the other thing is that the whole network might know where we are, and we might get told by the Western North Atlantic Search and Rescue System we might be contacted directly and say, we need you to get involved with this.
Sure, in the search and rescue.
Oh, because of the proximity thing. So there's a two-way street thing. And that's a satellite communication system, whereas this is just plain radio waves, local kind. It's not VHF, but it's high seas.
Sure. Good morning, Paul. Yes, this is the bench that you refinished. This is its normal spot. And if you hear some noise happening, this is Russell, who's shoved behind here. Russell's actually tidying up all of the wiring that's happening back in here. Still kind of a bit of a mess at the moment, but everything's starting to come together. So what else is new in our navigation suite here?
This is the single sideband. And this is just the faceplate. It used to be a box, but now its transceiver is that unit over there, which is much bigger than the original box, and it's controlled by this faceplate. And so this is also part of the GMDSS requirement because of where the boat might be. If we only worked the Chesapeake Bay, we wouldn't have to have this gear. But because we do ocean crossings, it's part of that listening post system idea. Anybody who's out there, anybody that's a commercial vessel out there, is therefore a listening post.
Sure.
And while we have satellite, we also have SSB, partly because we may be above latitude 70, and that means the satellite, which is geosynchronous, is too low to be registered by a satellite, so we have the alternate system of redundancy.
For the layman, what is geosynchronous?
So a satellite can either be far enough away so it's always in the same geographic location, like as the Earth turns, so does the satellite at the same speed. That's over, typically over the equator, following the planet the same geographical location all the time. And that's pretty far away. That's 22,000 plus miles away.
Sure.
There are other systems which are much closer, but being much closer, they got to go much faster.
So they're constantly orbiting. So geosynchronous is a stationary satellite, typically over the equator. Depending on how far north you are and how far south you are, it becomes less effective.
Yeah, because it gets lower and lower and lower in the ladder, and signal propagation becomes a problem. So a secondary system is the single sideband, which is a series of waves that are somewhat horizontal and somewhat echoing off the ionosphere. So you can get skip and bounce and go pretty far away, but it's not altogether consistent. But it's much longer a distance than, say, VHF, which is only 20, 30 miles.
Sure. Oftentimes referred to as line of sight.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Sure. What else is new in this spot here?
So we have a newer readout for GPS position. It's linked to a somewhat special, highly specialized antenna. It's a combination satellite-based position and heading sensor. So we now have a situation where our detail of heading, so this translates into a graphic on a chart. And we can see much more accurately the position of the ship in a chart because of this hybrid of a GPS antenna. So, satellite compass is what they call it.
Yeah, and so accurate we can see what the bow is doing in relation to the stern, right?
Yeah. So we haven't gone underway with this yet because we're still uprigging.
Yeah.
But the tails of other vessels in the harbor, such as some of the tugs have this system, are that they really know when their vessel is moving a degree one way or the other. And they can see the rate at which it's turning. And so in our case, it's not overly critical, but it would be a benefit. So to other things, just being able to see how the vessel performs. So we're not as much a critical, but it's not critical to us to have this, but it's beneficial.
Sure.
We see in the future that it could help with a lot of different knowing the boat, knowing how the boat behaves.
Yeah, and it could kind of confirm different ideas with actual data.
We've had to update the position announcing system, AIS as it's called. This has also been divided from one box into two boxes. This is the faceplate controller and the transceivers that way in the back there. And so AIS is a requirement of commercial vessels to be able to notify other commercial vessels or any vessel in the area what you're doing, where you are, how fast you're doing it, and then you can also code it in such a way they know where you're bound. And it's become a security thing. So national security is monitoring vessels. Partly, on a global basis, it helps with the business of smuggling, maybe pollution. But at a local basis, it's just security to know that the vessel is who they can verify that it's saying that it is actually who it says it is.
Right.
That it is in the purpose that it's saying it's in the purpose of. So.
Yeah, and I bet traffic control in places like the St. Lawrence Seaway would greatly benefit with AIS.
Now, at a very local level, it is. This ship, as we move around, when we know they're out there, instead of just having to look for them, the radar helps, our eyes help, but AIS, when they're transmitting, that means we see them way far away. We know exactly what they're doing and who they are. Recreational boats use AIS as well because they like to be seen and as well as like to see. So that means we're actually able to identify what traffic is doing, what its nature is, way, way ahead. We're not doing as much guesswork as we used to do.
Which is really beneficial if we're, sailing at 3 knots and they're charging down a channel at 30 plus.
Yeah, and we can get out of the way.
Right.
Because we see them so far away.
Without a lot of effort. Yeah.
Right. And we can give them confidence for commercial craft because in the bay, these container vessels that are 1,000 feet long, they're doing 18 knots, 15 knots. Passenger vessels, the big passenger vessels. So they cover a lot of distance, and just the seeing them on the horizon, especially at night when you can't see them until their lights are visible, we can make decisions much earlier, much more certainly, telegraphing to the other vessel, we are going to be out of the way.
Right.
So then we have updated VHFs. And we've duplicated this because in the GMDSS security world or safety world, you're looking for redundancy, backup. It's a backup system. So this having 2 also allows us to listen to 2 or more channels at the same time, 2 to 4 channels at the same time. We typically only listen to 2, so commercial channel 16, commercial channel 13 is for bridge-to-bridge conversation. Just, hey, you, what are you doing?
Yeah.
This is me. I'm doing this. So let's figure it out. Whereas 16 is where local folks can yell and scream and holler, help me, help me.
Sure. Wow, this is really cool. It's really great to see a lot of these upgrades, and it'll be fun to learn how to use them. Let's head up on deck there and actually go on shore and take a look at the progress that we've made in regards to uprig.
And before we go, this is the typical radar. It's nothing new about it. We've had it for a long, long time.
Sure.
And it works great.
So no reason to change it out.
I don't know if you want to show the stern, the antenna farm back aft.
Yeah. So in relation to all that gear, we've had to swap out some of these antennas. We refer to this as our mushroom farm, as these antennas resemble mushrooms. So there's some new ones in there and some repurposed ones in there.
So the crew have been rigging up. We'll see it better once we get ashore, but we've got topmast up. You'll see the jaboom has got a curve in it because it's being tightened into place. The jaboom up forward.
So we'll give a side look here. So we've got the 4 topmast up and panning over. We also have the main topmast. And is that typical to send the topmast up first?
Yes. Well, first relative to the business of the yards, not specifically to the jaboom. We can do the jaboom last, but because it's of the way things work out, we typically get it off the deck and up forward. We typically do the topmast, and the 4 topmast is required before we do the yards, the 4 topsail yard and this course yard.
Sure, and if you look really closely, you can see 2 people up there. They're buttoning up the 4 topmast shrouds. So there's lanyards there that they're clapping seizings on.
Yeah, we've made everything. They have done a lot of tightening, and you see the bend in the jaboom. So that's anticipating stretch under load.
Yeah, so let's take a look at that bend. I'm going to walk over this way.
So in the rope boat world of 300 years ago, 200 years ago, this is something that was always a factor. A certain amount of stretch would occur in fiber. If you knew your highest loads were going to be in one direction, you could anticipate that by bending in the opposite direction. And as long as that bend never straightened, then you were pretty confident that the spar itself wouldn't collapse. Because if it straightens and starts to go the other way, then the tension gets less. The support gets less. The bending gets more, and then things break. So you anticipate your stretch by going in the opposite direction and enough that you know that it'll never go more than just near straight, and it won't go the other way.
Sure. And then looking up at the fore topmast here, what kind of tensioning technique do we use there?
Same as down here, where we're taking mechanical advantage, putting it on the end of the lanyards, which themselves are a mechanical advantage, and tightening it up. So here you can see an idle bit of mechanical advantage. It's that chain fall, and it's sitting idle at the moment, but the chain was attached to the end of the lanyard. The lanyard was then drawn and drawn and drawn, and as the tension occurred, friction would increase, so there was lubrication there, and then even still you'd have to take up a little bit, then stop, and then equalize the lanyard legs tension, and then add more tension, and then re-equalize. It's a lengthy process.
Sure. And lastly, we're going to come back over to Sparlandia here. So what is the next yard that we're going to be sending up, Cap?
Typically we will go the square topsail yard, but before we send it up, we're going to attach all of the square topsail to it and get it furled up and rigged up so that it goes up all at once. Yes, we could stitch the sail on once the yard is up, but then we're in the wind. We have to keep climbing up and down. We found that if we do everything on the ground, we can have an easier time, a more accurate time of getting all the details. Now we have a new square topsail, and Jeff will show you that there's a strip of signage which are the donors to the cost of this sail. So when we get the sail furled up, these names will be exposed, and then when the sail is unfurled and sailing, they'll be on the back side of the sail. You won't be able to read their names from the deck, but the crew will see it, and if any of our donors are aboard and want to climb,
they can come check it out. Absolutely. And who makes our sails?
Well, Nat Wilson of Nat Wilson Sail Loft of East Booth Bay, Maine, has been making our sails. He started making sails for the first Pride of Baltimore. He has been instrumental in doing some fundamental design of cloth in a modern material that has the nature of a traditional cloth in a grown fiber as against the manufactured fiber.
So this is a synthetic fiber that mimics canvas.
Yeah. And he and North Sail Loft worked together on this some years ago. Oceanus is the trademark name of that product. It was an interesting collaboration because North Sail knew modern sails but had forgotten completely the world of traditional. And the mechanics that go, the stresses that go into modern sails because of the material means they actually make a sail totally differently than a traditional sail. And they were almost to the point of ignorance about the mechanics that go into a natural fiber traditional sail, traditional rigged sail. So that collaboration with Nat Wilson and North Sail Loft turned into an absolutely amazing knowledge-based collaboration, and it made a great product.
Absolutely. So can you describe what is happening with this top yard?
So this aluminum jack stay will be where the sail, the top of the square sail, will be attached to.
That's this guy here. So this is where the head of the sail lashes onto.
Right. But when you put it on there, it's not simply hanking and it's not simply stitching. It also involves stretching it out so that there are no sags between the locations where the eyelets are attached, where the lashings occur. There's guy lines, we call them brails, that help make like a curtain to put the sail into a position so it's not set and it's not very full of wind, and is where the crew start to do their furling when they want to do either a sea stow or a harbor stow. So out towards the end, we have blocks and fair leads. Here's another fair lead. These are all related to certain purposes. In this case, it's related to a brail. And in this case, it's related as a fair lead for the the top gallant, which will sheet through here, turn on this block, go back to a cleat in the middle of the yard. But when it comes to lashing the sail up, we have an earring strap, and then we have a special homemade jack stay, because we put so much tension on the leech, which is the side of the square sail, that it'll pull the corner down and put everything out of alignment with the top of the sail. So we have to have, and the ears out here instead of in here for sail area. So we create an extra jack line. This is all around the fact that we have a topsail yard topping lift. We have feet rope. This is this dark thing. It's stretched.
So this is what people actually stand on. So this will hang underneath the yard.
And then we have a block so that we can put the braces through there so we can control the yard angle to sailing. So it's a busy place. And then we have chafe. So we put leather in places for chafe, reasons of protecting from chafe. So doing all this aloft makes no sense. Doing all this down here, it'd make it heavy to lift, but we have the ability to do that.
Sure, and it's way easier to work on and get right down here before we send it up.
Yeah, for instance, the crew can practice furling.
Yeah.
Setting and furling, we can mock that up and not have wind get in the way.
Sure. Awesome. Well, really appreciate all of this info and this update on what we've been doing. So we're going to end the episode with another nautical or not. So we're going to go through some phrases and see whether they have nautical origins or don't have nautical origins. And the phrase for this week is flotsam and jetsam. Is that nautical or not, Cap?
I say it is. It's where I learned it. It was from my senior betters, and also you read about it. Flotsam is things that just are there, and jetsam is things that have been thrown away.
Sure, absolutely. And we do have one final question in from Paul Bussman. Can the Pride carry a course sail?
In terms of having a yard that you can hang something from, yes. In terms of its benefit to the boat, it would have very little benefit. And that's just the space. If we talk in terms of our authorization as a passenger sail vessel with the Coast Guard, we wouldn't be able to qualify for our stability with that much extra sail area. So we'd have to have a different sail combination. So we could sail a course, but we'd have to not set other sails because the sail area of the course would not be sustainable with all the sail we normally sail. So there's a trade-off, but that trade-off is a pretty easy answer because, of course, with a schooner rig doesn't work very well for going to windward which is what we do. Tacking is what we do. Where the square topsail and sometimes the gallant, we can manage that and go to windward. Yeah, we don't use a course. We're not looking to use a course. It's not very beneficial.
Sure, absolutely. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in with us this morning, and tune in next week for another update on how things are progressing as we slowly put the boat back together. And Captain Miles, do you have any parting words for us this morning?
As always, stay diligent.